السلام عليكم. هذه لجين الهذلول توا واصلة إلى الرياض في طريقها إلى البيت، تسوق ومبسوطة. اليوم الأربعاء 23 أكتوبر 2013.
In October 2013, Lujane al-Hathlul was filmed by her father driving in Riyadh. 13 months later, she got into her car in the UAE and drove to the Emirati border with Saudi Arabia. There she was stopped, detained, and jailed for 2 months. Women cannot drive in Saudi Arabia. Lujane's husband, Fahad al-Buteri, is a comedian and co-author of the satirical No Woman No Drive music video, which has over 13 million hits on YouTube. Both Lujane and Fahad have campaigned for social reform in Saudi Arabia. They spoke to The Economist's Middle East correspondent Nicholas Pelham in Riyadh in January 2016.
You were held in prison for 2 months. Were you formally charged?
Well, they tried. The first day I was charged with driving as a woman, and then the charge disappeared. A few weeks later I was charged with inciting public opinion, which was translated later on into terrorist charges. They tried to transfer me to the terrorist court, but I got out before that.
How did you learn to drive?
Well, I learned in Saudi. My dad taught me in the desert first, and then when I moved to Canada, I took some classes, but my brother was the one who gave me most of my lesson hours. Yeah.
You're a young married couple. You've got acquired a reputation for activism, both of you. How does that affect your lives?
Well, we signed the marriage papers a week before Lujane was detained, and Lujane was released 2 days before Valentine's Day, so I'm thankful for that. We actually started realizing who our real friends are. Those who were supportive, even though shyly, to a certain extent, were people that we still communicate with and still hang out with and still go out with and meet.
And what difference would it make to your own lives if you could drive, if your wife could drive? Would your life fundamentally change? Is it such a huge issue for you?
It's a constant issue that I face every day, and not only once a day, like emotionally too, because we fight a lot because of that issue. Like, who's gonna drive me around? Who's gonna take me? And just to beg people to take me around is insulting enough. For the financial part also, it does affect a lot. It takes a good 30% to 40% of my salary sometimes to pay for drivers, just to take me to the necessary things, the necessary places, like home to work, work to home.
When we spoke to Mohammed bin Salman, he made it very clear that the royal court was ahead of the popular curve, and that actually many women didn't want to go out to work, that this is in some way a kind of foreign demand. To what extent do you think there is really an appetite in Saudi society for a change which would allow greater participation by women in public life?
I think it's unfair of him to say that about women. If he just checks the long waiting list of women waiting for a job in the education sector, he would be amazed by the big number. Also, the jobs are limited compared to the number of graduates. I don't think they're working hard enough, in my opinion, toward that goal, while knowing that a lot of women want it. They really want it to work.
He talks about an entertainment crisis in the country. You're in the business of entertainment.
Yeah.
Do you think we're looking at a Saudi Arabia which can be more of a fun place to live?
Oh, definitely. We need more entertainment, that's for sure. We should start with cinemas. That's one thing we definitely cannot argue about. It's not, I mean, right now what we do for fun is kind of constrained within shopping and eating. So there's not much to do, outside of those two things.
How much of a margin of freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom even of lifestyle do you think there is today in Saudi Arabia, and is there a sense of change?
As for the freedom of speech, it's promised by the government. They promised us that we are actually protected and we have the right to express ourselves freely without being condemned or sent to jail or whatever. But in practice, it's not there. We're still in jail for saying very normal and very rationalized opinions, but they still send us to jail.
Mohammed bin Salman, he's 30 years old. Does that give you a sense of hope that there is now a youthful figure at the heart of government?
I think he will bring a lot of change into the country as a young leader, but he needs probably to focus a little bit more on what the people want instead of what he sees as potential in developed Saudi. And to say that his government is represents the people, it's not quite accurate. He's energetic, he wants change, but he needs to think more about what we want.
What sort of Saudi Arabia do you want to see?
A Saudi Arabia that respects people's differences and human rights, and they would actually open up for more opportunities.
We definitely cling on to every last thread of hope. We do have hope that things will change eventually, at some point, but not sure at what pace.
Lajin, الهذلول, Fahad البتيري, thank you very much indeed for talking to The Economist.
Thank you.
The Economist.